Greetings from Hyderabad. Today's event focuses on MCP Server. Um, it's building a agentic bridge between Sitecore to Content Hub, and it is presented by Rashmy Patwari, who is from hometown is also Hyderabad. So we're grateful to host her here in this session, and this session is hosted by Vishal and Yami. Thank you, and over to you, Rashmi.
Hello. Yeah, quick intro. So I work currently at Avanade, and I'm part of the Sitecore Center of Excellence over here. I've been honored as 5 times as a Sitecore MVP, including this year. And right now, currently, I mean, there's a lot of agentic stuff. Sitecore announced the whole portfolio of agentic products in the latest symposium, as we all know. And since then, there's been, most of us are interested in trying out the different offerings from Sitecore, and also something generally in the agentic world, developing connections and servers and agents for all kinds of workflows. So with this, for today's presentation, so I've been doing the same, and let me move to the next one. That's the agenda. So for this presentation, what we will start is just try to understand like the basics of MCP server. What it is, why it exists, and what does it how does it compare to the other familiar uh, familiar things that we are aware of, like normal APIs and etc. And then we will move. I have a demo where I have used basically developed an MCP server to connect to a Sitecore product, which is Sitecore Content Hub, to do basic searches using agents. So yeah, and I mean, again, throughout the presentation, you feel free to stop and I mean, it's let's keep it interactive. You can ask me questions if anything on a particular slide or anything as I'm going through, rather than and towards the end is also fine. So yeah, I mean, use the time as interactive as we can. So then we'll see the demo. It's basically an agent that is using the MCP server that's created to search assets on Sitecore Content Hub. Then we'll take a look at, if there is time. I mean, this is like a pretty big deck, but if there is time, then we will look at from this point. What does, if you want to build MCP servers for an enterprise like most of our clients are, so what does it take, and what are the caveats and the basic things that we need to ensure, especially the security aspect of agentic solutions. And then, of course, we can have, talk through any questions or anything that you want to kind of ponder more based on my journey with developing this MCP server. Okay, with that, move on to the next one. So, okay, so what is MCP now? MCP stands for a Model Context Protocol. That's the standard that was first published by Anthropic in late 2024. I know everything is like pretty latest in this agentic world, and now and things are literally like changing and evolving as we speak. So right now it's a standard now. So because it is backed by the broader consortium as well, all the companies and the developers of core LLM models. Now, what does it solve is basically, so we have agents and AI models, and then they need to call external tools. Like in this case, say we have the agentic. Say I'm developing a chatbot, right? Like, and I want to basically query Sitecore Content Hub for assets. That's the demo that we're going to see. And so that is what would be the I could painfully go ahead and develop a user interface which kind of calls the Content Hub API and basically solve the problem. But then the basic I mean, what could happen with that is again you'll have to think through all the scenarios. which is kind of and it won't be conversational. So instead, if I have an AM and I have an agent which wherein you want to use conversational language, say okay, find me something orange, or anything like or more so for the marketeers, if they want to query basic things like find me all the products with this particular SKU, the examples could be like endless, as how much of conversational search can happen if we have this kind of connection. So that is basically the core use case for or for developing an MCP server, wherein you want to connect an agent or conversational agent to a product which exposes APIs. So in this case, we are connecting a conversational agent. In this case, I have an agent which is running on Foundry, and now that is using that agent and the chat interface, I can actually query for Content Hub assets, based on conversational language. So that's basically the core problem that we are trying to solve with an MCP. Okay, any questions up until this point? I can take a pause here. Okay. All right. So the three core features of MCP servers are basically tools, resources, and prompts. Prompts. Let's start with the prompts so that although it's like laid out in this order. So prompts are user controlled. We don't know what question can be asked on the chat interface, and it could be it is typically plain English conversation or voice. That's the new evolution, and from there. So the prompts, and if I say I'm developing an agent for this kind of a conversational thing, so now that needs some resources to query. Say, if I say, okay, go find something in Content Hub, then it has to have some kind of a connection to Content Hub. So that's a resource. Or it can have, or if you ask it to search for documentation, then you have to provide the documentation. So basically, there has to be some knowledge base or connection, and in this case we're focusing mostly on the connection which is provided by the MCP server. And then we have tools now. So the MCP server has to expose similar to. I will compare with API because that's the familiar zone for us. But in this case, the MCP server has to provide some tools so that in this case we have tools like there is search, then there's visual search, then there are. So we will take a look at those tools that are developed for this particular MCP server. So with that understanding, let's look at the next one. So okay, I've said many times, compared it with APIs, but this kind of brings out the architecture between what an API can do and what an MCP server can do. So MCPs are mostly, it's. Let's take a pause and look at the differences. So API is typically a contract between your code and a system. So this is so a system like a service will expose an endpoint. We're all very familiar with it, and we as developers we kind of write the call, and then we kind of shape the request. So it's a request response. Whatever response comes back, we pick what we need from that response, and then we use it for further execution. MCP again is a different thing. So in here, the AI itself is the actor. So so the user basically interacts through the agent. Now agents are the main consumers of MCP servers, and MCP servers have to have. So in APIs, contract can be very specific to the service, whereas for MCP servers, they will have to follow the 3 steps that we saw in the previous. So they have to have the three core features, like they have to consume some resources, expose a bunch of tools, so that the agents can communicate with them. So that's the standard protocol. Okay, moving on. Okay, here are some more differences. So it is not, MCP won't be another API. That is basically because agents interact with it. There are like a developer cannot call, where a developer can call and not, code bases cannot literally call it like an API. And so tools need to kind of expose that interface for consumption by agents in a friendly manner. So then you have a set of tools. You can query for what tools exist. So the MCP server or the agent will tell you, and then the agent can specifically query the MCP server for those tools. We are already using them. Now, our Sitecore search, for that matter, when we go onto the developer portal for documentation. So there is an MCP server for documentation. We can connect it to our Visual Studio Code and start querying the documentation server for Sitecore. Similarly, there is a marketeer MCP wherein we can basically, we don't need to go to the content editor anymore or the experience editor, or for the pages editor. We can actually create pages and items basically using conversational, using the marketeer MCP. So like I said, it's like a constantly evolving and a fast catching up domain now. And so that's so I haven't seen anything offered yet for the Content Hub, but so that's where I had I saw that as a gap, and this is the effort towards filling up that. So over here again, again, this slide explains, what are the core features. So MCPs, so the bottom line is that MCPs are basically built for models, and APIs are basically built for developers, and to establish the communication between systems. Typically, API have contracts, and it is basically between developers and other services, or one system to the other. So with that, okay, this explains, like, when we won't use MCPs and what it cannot do basically. So in here now, say for instance, your AI needs to learn from the data. So it's more like a machine learning kind of a model. So that's when you can't use MCPs over there, because MCPs are like fixed. Once it is deployed with a set of tools, it won't constantly learn from the data. So that's where you will have to use other alternatives in the agentic systems. So the alternatives are given in the last column of there. Like basically, you use AI search, vector databases, and then fine tuning. Again, you need RAG generation, and so MCP servers again just fetch data. You cannot kind of look at documentation and ask it to kind of do augmentation over there. So there are other alternatives for that. So I leave this deck, at least a PDF of this with you, so that you will have these notes. I don't want to read through every slide. There are a lot of informative slides like this. But I can take questions if you have anything specific up until this point. All right, let's move on. Yeah. So I'll take a pause here. I show you what's been developed. How so far, just to the connection between the MCP server, Content Hub, and the agent that's being developed on Foundry. Okay. Let me stop that. Y'all can see my screen. So there's the okay. So what I have here is a Content Hub assistant agent that's created in Foundry. Let me just refresh so that it's not timed out yet. Okay. So again, as part of this presentation, I'm not really covering a lot on agent itself, like how to create an agent, but just the basic steps over here. So what I've done is I've created this agent. This is basically the core instruction over here. This just says, okay, you are an expert Content Hub assistant that helps users search, browse, and retrieve content from Sitecore Content Hub. Capabilities include, now these are the tools that are exposed by my MCP server. So so I'm actually telling the agent, what it can do with the MCP server. So include searching for digital assets, products, and marketing content using natural language, retrieving detailed asset information, including metadata, download URLs, relationships, etc., etc. So basically everything that you can do searching Content Hub for assets. So this agent basically should do that. Then I've even given it further instructions when the users ask for content, use the appropriate tool, etc., etc. Somewhere down. And now let's look at the tools. So that's the MCP server that is currently deployed on Azure. So as an app service, excuse me. And let's see the specs of that. So it uses Open API schema. So that's the connection to the MCP server. So you see, this is my app service, Content Hub MCP server, which is loaded, which is basically, it's so it queries the tools, and for each of the tools, so this whole spec has to be set up on the agent so that it knows what tools exist. So in here we have like the search content, enhance search, get asset, list collections, get metadata. So these are the 7 tools available from the Content Hub MCP server. Now, again, for each of the tools, what are the similarly, it's a specification how for this particular agent to query the MCP server, to use the MCP server. So I leave it at that. So this basically talks through all the 7 tools, their input, output, what it can do, and things like that. Once I do that, I haven't really set up anything else for this. No memory, nothing. I haven't even set up any guardrails. But for an enterprise agent, again, like I said, this is not a talk for how to develop an agent, but this is basically we are looking at this particular thing, the MCP server itself. So with that, let me just ask it, like, what can you do? So I'm asking the agent. And the agent right now has only one tool, that is the MCP server. So it will answer for that, saying that, okay, I can do all of these. It's only speaking for the MCP server. It's saying, okay, I can do search and discovery, then enhance search, and I can even help you browse collections. So, and then it's basically telling the features of each of the tools that the MCP is offering in plain language. Now, then I'll ask it something like, what are the latest? Or I'll just say assets. Keep it very vague. So while it is doing this, so again, we can set any model that we want based on what we want to do. So in this case, I wanted it to be like very descriptive, show some pretty images as they are, icons and imagery. And so I kind of used the latest model, the Claude Sonnet 4.6. But I can use GPT-4 or any of the models on the agent. So here it is saying that, okay, my content hub, this is my sandbox content hub. I don't have like, it's not like constantly in use. So I don't have like too much going on over there. So the latest, most recently was in 2023. So that was those are the products. So so you can see like they're all like products straight out of Content Hub. And let me say, okay, now get me the details. First one. So this is all happening out of the MCP server itself. So the MCP server is querying Content Hub, and it is basically, this is all developers' work. So basically, we have to develop the MCP server, to develop each of the tools, and each of the tools that we have kind of told the agent that the agent can use. And there I go, have some bug over there. I didn't understand the first one. Okay. Okay. Try an asset ID like this. It has to happen, right? Like demos never go smooth. Let me refresh and try
That's
again.
there.
All right. Okay.
So I think this is kind of developing a skill for the agent, right? We are doing it for one time, like setting up the rules and other things, calling the needed APIs, or maybe we call it as the resources, as you said. So we need to do
Yeah,
it as a one-time skill, and we just have to let the MCP know that, like the context protocol, to be follow these instructions and get me whatever you can. Like it is just a repetitive task which is performed by developer once, correct?
that's
Kind of
correct.
like
Yeah.
that.
So again, this is only one agent. So the what is developed over here, and this particular agent is only doing search. But we know that Content Hub has a lot of other things we can do. Like we can kind of create assets. We can do all the crude operations for assets. Now this assistant is not doing, this particular agent is not doing all of that. It's only interested in searching assets. So again, like the
Okay.
use cases are depending on what use case you're developing. You will we will have to. So again, similarly, the MCP server over here, one of the best practices would be to keep it very specific. Like now, in this case, this MCP server does only search. So keep it only for if you need something to kind of create assets or do the general operations related to assets, or if you have something to do with Content Hub operations, like doing something with the workflows and identities and stuff like that. So have a MCP server specific for those tasks. So we cannot have something that kind of exposes 100 tools and does so that then it would, I mean, kind of similar to
Yeah.
our separation of concerns. I mean, those rules still apply,
Yes.
wherein we want
Yes.
to keep it very
Because
specific.
yeah, we
Yeah,
don't
go
want
on.
to just Google or something like that. We just want a specific agent to do the task because we don't want to mess it up, and it gives 100 resources if we add more context to the data. Got it. Got it. Okay.
That is correct. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so it is. So I asked it for fruitful products found in Content Hub. And so that is so basically it found so fruitful in. I mean, again, it is smart enough to understand that I mean a brand when I say fruitful. So that is, and it is smart enough because the MCP server understands that. So that's so when I say fruitful, I mean a brand. So that's why it found me all assets that belong to that particular brand. Now let me search, get more details on this, which didn't work last time. Let's again if it works this time. So if it fails again, let's take a look at the debugging mechanisms. Again, not I mean just for us to understand where the problem might be. So it just gives a decent enough trace to the request response, what went to the MCP server and what came back as a response. No, okay. Let's see. I'm opening up the traces. Here's what failed. Right. So we can see the entire call over here happening. So there is a call made to the Content Hub tool. This is the body of the call. I said get asset, arguments was asset ID, something. I'm thinking, some in my most recent code change, something messed up with the asset ID itself. So let's see. It will tell me what it is. It's saying there's a validation error. For what? For get asset IDs arguments. Not much of a help here. Okay, this is the successful thing, what happened before. So you can see, you can basically debug through the whole path. the conversation. So starting here. So the conversation started, and then we asked, the first one was find me the fruitful products. And then this was the output. I can even look at the metadata as to what went back and forth between the agent and the server. And this is the failed one. Again, same thing. Then look at what went. Okay. Let me try something else now. Go back there. So pretty vague. Okay. This happens because there's no memory and it cannot kind of keep track of what was previously conversed. So for that, I can add memory, but since I chose to use this particular model, Sonne 4.6, I don't have, it is only supporting memory, I mean, foundry problem. So you will experience these things as you, develop through some of these tools, because every one of them, like, the LLMs are evolving, the platforms are evolving, in this case like Foundry or any other agentic, like even if you start using Claude for that matter, I've noticed similar things happening over there. So they are, by the time, I mean, it's all pretty, I won't say flaky, it's great, but but as developers, you will encounter situations like this. So now, right now, it's saying that only, OpenAI models can use memory. I mean, I can set memory on Foundry. So if I switch the model to GPT-4, I can do that, but I don't want to do that right now. Maybe fresh. Okay. And now Foundry hangs. All right. And it crashed. Okay. All right. So I think we can go back to the presentation, because this is basically what I wanted to show in terms of the demo itself.
Yeah, we are good with that, Rashmi, because these things happen, not to worry. Demos are bound to happen like this.
Let me see. I think it must be just like overly a lot of things running on my laptop as well, probably is causing the problem here. Okay, let's try to refresh. Yeah, I think it's my laptop. All right. Okay. Let's start from the beginning. Okay, while it does that, I can show you a little bit into the code. I just wanted to kind of show you the implementation itself for each of the tools. So you can see this. So this is it's a Next.js implementation. And if I go to the end of this particular code, you can see. So these are all the tools that are built for this MCP server. So I've got a search content tool, enhance search, etc., and then there is a visual search as well. So that was what I was trying to do earlier. Find something with lemons on them, assets with lemons on them, and it figured and it decided to use the visual search. So which tool to use? We kind of give those specifications in that entire Open API spec that I wrote for the agent. So that it understands that for this particular kind of thing, you use what tool to pick from the available tools. So like I said, so again, this is this is basically the implementation. And so it queries Content Hub, and then it took me a bit to figure the Content Hub API itself and the best possible the API to use for a particular for to kind of code the MCP servers tool itself. So yeah, I think this was what was failing before the get asset tool, but I'm not going to look into that right now. Let's go back there and see what it did. Okay, so it figured when I asked it for powerful brand as well, it found some things for me. Let me query for metadata for this particular thing. Okay.
Any queries you can ask now, or you can ask at the end of the session as well.
Yeah, I think while we wait, this is a good time. I'll kind of talk through something else. Or while I'm sharing, if you want to see something, as a part of this whole build. Okay, this is just taking too long. All right. Again, it failed. Okay, I think not my day today. Okay, let me try a visual search. Pretty vague. Okay, I can't remember what it is doing. I asked it something like, find me assets with lemons on them. Because I know there is a fruitful brand and it has a lot of images in my Content Hub with lemons. Anyways, so you get the idea. Let us, I don't want to keep you waiting for that. We can go through the rest of the presentation. I'll give it one few more seconds. No? Okay. I give up. All right, let's do that. Okay, where were we? Yeah. So we saw, the connection between the agent, the Content Hub API or the Content Hub itself, and what the role of the MCP server was in translating in basically establishing the connection between the agent and the Content Hub server. So, okay. So what are we what did we solve, right? Like, doing this particular whole implementation for MCP server. Now, before accessing the Content Hub would have been, would be programmatically, and it requires a deep knowledge of the REST API, the entity schema, query language, flow, etc. Now, even for experienced developers, you need to spend time on this, and non-developers really cannot do it at all. So if I were to be a marketeer and I want plain conversational way of querying for assets, then there is, there was just like no way there, and unless you go and use the Content Hub, the portal itself. Now, what we have enabled is basically now the marketing manager can literally go in there, provided this implementation is enterprise ready. We can basically find everything, say all campaign images for this particular campaign, Spring 2026 launch, or in plain conversational English. So that's what is basically solved by this implementation. So now how is AI helping here? Now the agent figures out which MCP tool to call based on the specification that it has been given. So you give the specification as a developer. We have seen that whole open API spec, and the intelligence lies in that particular LLM model. In this case, Claude Sonnet figured out what to use out of those set of tools, and it uses the right tools. It passes the right arguments, gets the results, and it presents it conversationally. This is pretty. So what it has basically solved for us as developers is basically no detailed. Otherwise we would have had to write those detailed out API docs and develop something with a user interface. So that marketeers can do this kind of query, right? Like if this middle bridge was not there as an MCP server. So that's something that we have solved. About the solution itself, what is under the hood over here. So this is like you've seen, I've just shown you briefly in the code. This is a middleware solution. It is hosted on Azure, and it is basically handling all the interactions with Sitecore Content Hub with following the protocol of MCP. It's not an agent. Agent was the other one that we have seen on Foundry. It is just a gateway. So MCP server, it's just a gateway over there. It translates the protocol. So between what Content Hub exposes as an API to what MCP is and what agents can understand. It should have a security layer because what will happen is if it doesn't, then we all know that all agentic systems comes with some kind of a subscription package. You have a limited number of tokens available, and if it doesn't do the rate limiting and it doesn't do the caching or proper authentication, it can be you can quickly exhaust all your tokens by running a few calls like I just did. So that's why the security layer is pretty, and the recommendation is using basically following OWASP even for MCP server implementations. Then it needs to support multiple AIs. Like I said, most systems, we've got a big choice out there. Everybody is evolving. There are LLM models, there are LLM companies. So there would be something from Microsoft, something from Azure. Microsoft's OpenAI, then there is Claude, and then there is, there's a huge choice. So in this case, like I was showing you, Microsoft Foundry, it doesn't offer memory yet for non-Azure models. So that's the reason I couldn't do memory for the Claude one that I decided to use. And I decided to use Claude because I wanted those pretty imagery, and it's got a great, its presentation is much better than other models, in terms of, so for the sake of the demo, I wanted to use that. So that's the reason. So you got to kind of consider all these things while developing MCP servers. The high-level architecture, again, only for this particular demo use case, wherein so any kind of external service like GitHub Copilot, OpenAI, or Claude, they have to kind of hit the MCP server. The MCP server should be agnostic enough to support the different client interfaces. Then again, there is a slight difference between, because you can see that there is so there when I used so I was trying out with different agents before, and when I was doing building the agent with GitHub Copilot, I had to had I mean it couldn't directly talk to the MCP server, so I had to use a Visual Studio Code extension, Copilot extension to do that. That's why I put that little bridge in between the GitHub Copilot's client and the MCP server. So similarly, there are, but the other ones are straight open API specs, and then they can talk. I've been saying a lot. Any questions until this point? Because it's just going to get more and more technical beyond this slide. All right. Okay. Moving on. Again, we spoke about this. The three things. So in the context of the demo that we have seen, so we have so the tools that were exposed. If you recall the previous slide, I've shown so MCP server needs to have like three things. So similarly the MCP server for Content Bridge AI has tools, resources, and prompts. The prompts were what we have seen, like find me assets of the brand Fruitful and things like that. What the basic prompts that I gave as part of the chat. And then there were the resources. In this case, there was just one resource, which is the Sitecore Content Hub API layer that was utilized by the MCP server. Again, for the tools, these are the 7 tools that were exposed by the MCP server. So this is specifically for our demo. Again, a little more on the tools, what each of the tools does in this slide. We saw that. Okay. I don't want to kind of go through the use cases because I've demonstrated them just now. All right. So here's what happens, like literally like step by step from. I mean, we've seen a little bit of that in the trace logs, but basically, the step one would be the user asks a question in their AI client, which we did. Then the AI model, GPT or Claude, understands the intent and selects the appropriate tool. We did that as well. That was step 2. Then the client sends a JSON RPC 2.0 post to the MCP message with the method tools call. So that's what happened as the third step. So basically, you're hitting the MCP server with using that protocol, and then this is all pretty standard. There's nothing I mean, this is like pretty standardized by this point. So there's no big there's not a lot of figuring out to do as to what protocol to use and what not, because they're all pretty much following the same standard. And then the MCP server validates the request, checks authentication, applies rate limiting, and checks the cache. Because we don't want to keep doing hitting this without an exhaust of tokens. So rate limiting and check, if it is a cached response, it can just respond back immediately so that we don't spin a lot. And if it is not cached, then it will execute it. So that means it has to call Content Hub to get the request. And then it calls the Content Hub REST API with the OAuth 2 authentication. That's again standard because if you're familiar with Content Hub, we do have an API key, and we can use OAuth 2 to basically set up a username and query Content Hub. The response is again reformatted, and then the AI client receives the structured result. What we saw failing in the demo was that structured result. So somewhere in these steps, the translation was failing, wherein you were asking I was asking for the asset ID, specific metadata or the details for a particular asset, and it was failing to kind of translate it in one of the steps here. So this is the journey basically. Again, it is the total time would, without caching would be like, is much higher. But if we introduce caching, then it can be pretty augmented. All right. So from this point now, this is a demo. This is like more like a proof of concept. But if beyond this, if I were to kind of make it enterprise ready, then the next several slides I can basically talk through that, or leave this with you, and then you can take a read through the content yourself. So either way is fine. But yeah, so basically I'll just talk through a couple of them. So basically for enterprise readiness, we need to have all the features, like we all know. So it has to be high availability, disaster recovery, CI/CD pipeline needs to be established to take care of the deployments for the MCP server. So it's just like standard practices, what would happen in a delivery project if we were to do this for a client. Similarly, again, so we will have to choose as if for MCP servers need a hosting platform. So in this case, mine is hosted as an app service. So in this case, so basically we need to choose a platform, be it AWS or it could be, so choose a platform which can provide you the basic features. And then for enterprise servers, then we will have to have other standard practices like infrastructure. I mean, basically, have ISC so that we can easily kind of deploy our MCP servers and scale them as needed. Then what else have we got here? Yeah, so again, protocol compliance. So it has, so MCP servers have to, we spoke about this a bit in a couple of slides back. So basically protocol compliance means that JSON RPC is pretty standard at this point, and that has to be supported. But then there are other protocols as well, which we need to consider as required. So like some of them, SSC is, so it's basically server sent events protocol is pretty much, so Claude essentiated that up until probably very recently. But then now they are moving away from SSC. So, but yeah, like we will have to, once you set out to develop MCP servers, you'll have to be like very clear as to, but JSON RPC is widely supported at this point. So we will have to look at the official documentation and choose the correct protocol depending on where the agent is hosted as well. All right. And again, test it out thoroughly with different clients, Claude, Foundry, and any other interfaces, so that you're sure that you've taken care of all the fine grains. Again, for security, pretty much it's a given. So enterprise systems will have to have all the boxes checked when it comes to security handling. This is more for handling the, so basically, we need to save on the cloud cost as well as, and this will come up as part of, the client's requirements for real delivery projects. Again, caching is our biggest lever for MCP servers, basically, because that's where most of the savings will come from. And we don't want to exhaust, so yeah, that's so basically the agentic tokens for excessive number of calls. All right, then what else? Yeah, for very low volume ones, we can consider serverless options. So that's an option as well. So yeah, it depends upon the exact use case and what we are setting out as part of this implementation. That is pretty much the end of the presentation. So I've got, I think I've got like a bunch of slides in the appendix as well. So you can, just take a lot of reading material. But yeah, before development, familiarization with the protocol itself, reading the official documentation, JSON RPC, Open API spec, all that is required. we need to understand the security standards. OWASP is the requirement for building this. So we have to kind of check all the boxes over there. And architectural patterns as such, I mean, again, it's basically all the best practices of what we would do depending on the platform that we are hosting it. So that's it. Sitecore Content Hub, because this demo is basically connecting to that, but whichever is the end environment that we are trying to fetch or query with. So yeah, I can take up questions at this point. If you have any, yeah, thank you. You've been like really patient listeners.
Any questions you can ask now? Okay, I think there are no questions. Rashmi, it was really very helpful and an insightful presentation because this is the now the trend like agentic AI and the content hub and other things, right? So we need to we will be having agents in future also, like mostly, but as you said, specification is a really matter thing because we have to put it as a scale also. So I think that's a really good presentation. Thank you for the session. Thank you, Rashmi.
Sure. Yeah, Mini. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I mean, reach out. You can find me on Slack, at the regular places, LinkedIn, Slack. So reach out in case when you set out to do this. And, I'm happy to share what I have learned in the journey. And it's evolving. As I said, this implementation is no way near ready for enterprise delivery yet. So yeah, so this is like a constant evolving field for all of us. Yeah, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you in the next session. Bye. Bye, guys.
Sure. Yeah, bye.